I found a bottle of women's lubricant in my husband's bag. I didn't make a scene. I didn't throw a fit. I just quietly replaced it with 502 super glue. At 2 a.m., our new nanny was rushed to the emergency room. Ryan Mitchell was taking a shower in the bedroom. His phone in his bag kept buzzing, waking me from sleep. I pulled it out to check it. It was a spam call starting with 800. After hanging up, I put the phone back where it was, but my fingers accidentally brushed against something cold and smooth, like a small bottle. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. Pink bottle. The packaging showed a provocative anime woman. All the text was in Japanese. It definitely didn't look legitimate. My heart tightened. Quickly used an image search app to scan the bottle. The results made me freeze instantly. It was women's lubricant, extra stimulation formula, and it had been opened, clearly used. My vision went black like someone had hit me over the head with a club. I was still recovering from childbirth. This thing obviously wasn't used with me. Ryan Mitchell, was he cheating? That thought pierced my heart like a sharp knife. The sound of running water continued in the bathroom, but my mind was in chaos. With trembling hands, I unlocked his phone. My darling wife was pinned at the top. Inside were just work messages and mundane daily conversations. So bland you couldn't find a single flaw. Instagram, TikTok, hotel booking apps, even gaming apps. I quickly checked them all but couldn't find any suspicious traces. Could it be? Was this bottle someone's prank? I was still trying to find a reasonable excuse for the lubricant, but the next moment, my finger accidentally slid to a folder labeled work. Inside was actually a parenting app. This wasn't right. Ryan Mitchell had OCD. His phone apps were meticulously organized. How could a parenting app be in the work folder? My heart jumped. My finger uncontrollably clicked on that app. The chat history inside made my blood run cold. March 8th, that day, I was rushed to the hospital due to threatened miscarriage. He stayed by my bedside all night. Held out for 3 months. Thought I could finally get some action. Didn't expect her to be so useless. I'll book a room near the hospital tonight. I'm dying here. Skip the fishnets. Get a nurse outfit. That's hot. May 20th, that day. He took maternity photos with me. He even proposed to me again in front of everyone, saying he wanted to spend 52 more anniversaries with me. When she cries, her fat jiggles. It's disgusting. I'm traveling tomorrow. Come stay with me for a few days. I miss you so much. I want to destroy you. September 10th, that day. I was in the delivery room on Pedersen. He cried harder than me, saying he'd never let me suffer again. I heard after giving birth, it's like a loose bag. How are you? Still so tight. Missing you again. Send me some videos to tide me over. Can you come to the hospital bathroom now? I can't take it anymore. October 6th. That day was our wedding anniversary. We took family photos. He smiled and said we were a happy family of 3 today. With her right there. You moaned so loud. She has no idea. Just holding the baby and smiling at me like an idiot. And the most recent message read, let's try something exciting tonight. A wave of nausea surged in my stomach. I covered my mouth tightly, afraid I'd vomit right there. These filthy words actually came from honest Ryan Mitchell. I couldn't understand, really couldn't understand. He was always so good to me. Came home on time, handed over his paycheck. During pregnancy, he did all the housework every day. He patiently massaged my swollen legs, carefully applied stretch mark cream. He even cheerfully hand-washed my underwear, treated me like I was made of glass. Every time I had a prenatal checkup, he'd be so anxious the night before. He couldn't sleep. When I was in labor, he stood outside the delivery room crying louder than me. Other women couldn't get a full night's sleep postpartum, but I slept until I naturally woke up every day. Because Ryan Mitchell had already arranged everything in advance. Old standard nanny nutrition, meal plans, parenting knowledge. He even got up every night to soothe the baby, just so I could sleep a little longer. Even my best friend said, you couldn't find a man like this with a lantern. Yeah, how could a man like this cheat? But reality slapped me hard across the face. Ryan Mitchell was cheating started during my pregnancy. I wiped away my tears and took a deep breath. No, this wasn't the time to cry. Crying wouldn't solve anything. I used my phone to photograph all these chat records one by one. Then I replaced the lubricant liquid with 502 glue. Although I didn't know who Ryan Mitchell was cheating with, but tonight everything would be revealed. Just as I put everything back in place, the bathroom door opened. Ryan Mitchell walked out, drying his wet hair. Seeing me sitting on the bed, his steps paused. Honey, it's so late. Why aren't you asleep yet? His voice was as gentle as always. I looked up, my eyes meeting his. In that instant, tears involuntarily welled up like emotions finally found an outlet. Seeing me cry, Ryan Mitchell panicked, quickly walked to my side, his eyes full of concern. Honey, why are you crying? Did you have a nightmare? You can't cry during postpartum recovery, or you'll get complications. His movements were very gentle. If I hadn't seen those chat records with my own eyes, I would have almost believed his concern was real. Turns out love can be performed so convincingly. I stared at him with red eyes, my voice trembling. Honey, I just dreamed you were cheating. Ryan Mitchell froze, then chuckled softly, reaching out to pull me into his arms. Silly girl, dreams are reversed. You might as well dream I died. I clenched my fists, nails almost digging into my flesh, but still pretended to joke. Honey, I'm fat and ugly now. Do you still love me? Ryan Mitchell released me, cupped my face with both hands, his eyes affectionate. Then he lowered his head and reverently kissed my forehead. My wife is always the most beautiful woman in the world. Besides, you're the person I pursued for 10 years. How could I not love you? Yeah, Ryan Mitchell pursued me for 10 years. He even gave me one of his kidneys. I once truly believed pigs would fly before Ryan Mitchell would cheat. However, reality was that cruel. Those chat records were like thorns deeply embedded in my heart, stabbing me bloody. I looked into his eyes and spoke word by word. Honey, if you really cheated, would you die? A flash of discomfort crossed his expression, but he quickly regained composure. I die before I cheat. I finally smiled. Ryan Mitchell, those are your words. People who betray true love deserve to die. Ryan Mitchell smiled, too. He reached out and ruffled my hair. His tone relaxed. That's better. My wife looks best when she smiles. Ryan Mitchell brought me a glass of warm milk and handed it to me. Honey, drink some milk. It helps you sleep. As I took the milk, I gently sipped it. The next moment, I put down the glass and frowned. Honey, the baby seems to be crying. Can you check? Ryan Mitchell didn't suspect anything and turned to leave the room. I quickly poured the milk into the sink, watching the milky, white liquid wash away. I sneered inwardly. So this was why I slept through the night? When Ryan Mitchell returned, his gaze swept over the empty milk glass. A strange excitement flashed in his eyes. Walked to my side, gently patted my shoulder. His tone gentle. Honey, the baby's sleeping fine. Don't worry. I nodded, pretending to be drowsy and yawned. That's good. I'm tired, too. Let's sleep, he smiled. Reached out to turn off the bedside lamp. And the room plunged into darkness. Closed my eyes, breathing steadily as if I'd fallen into deep sleep. Midnight, Ryan Mitchell gently patted my face, tentatively, calling out twice, honey, honey. I kept my eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. Started snoring softly. Ryan Mitchell paused for a long while, seemingly confirming I was truly asleep. Then, he carefully climbed out of bed, his movements cautious, afraid of waking me. After confirming he'd left, I opened my eyes and checked the time. 1 a.m. Ryan Mitchell was really dedicated, still going out to meet his mistress at this hour. I grabbed my phone, quietly got up and followed him. Soon I'd have the evidence. To my surprise, Ryan Mitchell didn't leave the house, but turned into the guest bedroom. The guest bedroom was the baby's room. My heart jumped. Did tonight's probing make Ryan Mitchell change his plans? The next second, I realized Ryan Mitchell was far more disgusting than I thought. The guest bedroom was the baby's room. Our new nanny, a 22-year-old college student named Chloe, slept in the twin bed next to the crib. We hired her 2 weeks ago. I personally interviewed her, touched by her sweet demeanor and her supposed background in early childhood education. I crept down the hallway, my bare feet silent against the hardwood floor. The door to the nursery was left slightly ajar, a sliver of faint yellow light spilling onto the carpet. I held my breath and pressed my back against the wall, inching closer until I could peer through the crack. The baby was sound asleep in the crib, her soft breathing serving as the background noise to the nightmare unfolding just 3 feet away. Ryan was standing at the edge of the twin bed. Chloe was sitting up, her innocent, oversized pajamas discarded on the floor. She was wearing the exact nurse outfit Ryan had demanded in the chat logs. Is she completely out? Chloe whispered, her voice lacking any of the sweet, professional tone she used with me. Now it was dripping with a sickening, cloying whine. Dead to the world, Ryan chuckled softly, the same warm chuckle he used when he kissed my forehead an hour ago. I put enough crushed Ambien in her milk to knock out a horse. She's not waking up until noon. God, you look amazing. You took forever, Chloe pouted, wrapping her arms around his neck. I was getting bored. Did you bring it? Of course. Ryan reached into the pocket of his robe and pulled out the small pink bottle. I stood in the dark hallway, my nails digging so hard into my palms that I felt warm blood pool beneath my cuticles. The man I had loved, the man who had cried outside my delivery room, the man who had supposedly given me a kidney, it was all a mask. Underneath, he was a monster who didn't even care that he was desecrating his own daughter's bedroom. Put it on me, Chloe whispered, leaning back onto the mattress. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. 502 Superglue. Superglue cures via an exothermic chemical reaction when it comes into contact with moisture. It doesn't just stick, it burns. Ryan uncapped the bottle. In the dim light, he squeezed a generous amount into his palm, then applied it. For exactly 3 seconds, there was silence. Then, Ryan's movements abruptly halted. He let out a sharp, confused gasp.
Wait.
What the?
Ow.
Ryan, that stings. What is that? Chloe hissed, her body tensing. I don't know, it's... Ryan's voice hitched, suddenly laced with genuine panic. It's drying. It's burning. He tried to pull away. That was when the screaming started.
Ah.
Stop. Stop. You're tearing my skin. Chloe shrieked, thrashing on the bed. The sound was blood-curdling, completely devoid of any attempt to stay quiet. I can't move. It's stuck. Ryan yelled, his voice rising an octave in absolute terror. He yanked backward in a blind panic, resulting in an even louder, more agonizing scream from Chloe. Inside the crib, my daughter woke up and began to wail, startled by the chaos. I took a deep breath, smoothing out my features to a mask of drowsy confusion, and pushed the door wide open. I flicked on the overhead light. The scene before me was something straight out of a grotesque dark comedy. Ryan and Chloe were frozen in a contorted, agonizing pose, literally glued together at the groin. Chloe was sobbing hysterically, clawing at Ryan's chest to stop him from moving. Ryan was pale as a sheet, sweating profusely, staring at me with eyes wide enough to fall out of his skull. Honey, I said, letting my voice tremble perfectly. What is happening? Lily, Ryan gasped, his face twisting in a sickening blend of excruciating pain and utter mortification. Lily, don't look. It's not what you think. There was an accident. An accident? I took a step forward, my eyes darting between his flushed face and Chloe's sobbing, half-naked body. You accidentally fell into the nanny. Please, call an ambulance. Chloe shrieked, her face red and wet with tears. It burns. Oh my God, it feels like acid. Help me. I slowly walked over to the crib, gently picking up my crying baby and cradling her against my chest. I looked down at them with wide, terrified eyes. I don't understand. Why are you stuck? Lily, please just call 911. Ryan begged, a pathetic sob breaking from his throat. He tried to shift his weight and immediately howled in pain. Please. I'll explain everything later. Just get us help. Okay, I'm calling. I pulled out my phone with one hand, dialed 911, and put it on speaker. 911, what is your emergency? The dispatcher answered. Yes, please send an ambulance to 420 Elm Street, I said, my voice shaking with mock hysteria. My husband is having a medical emergency. He's physically stuck inside our nanny. I think they used some kind of industrial adhesive instead of lubricant. They're bleeding. Ma'am, did you say stuck inside the nanny? The dispatcher asked, a hint of disbelief cracking her professional tone. Yes. Please hurry. They're screaming so loud they woke the baby. I hung up. I stood there, rocking my daughter, silently watching the two of them writhe on the bed. The pink bottle lay discarded on the rug. Lily, I'm so sorry, Ryan whimpered, tears streaming down his face. She seduced me. I didn't want to. She threatened to quit and leave you without help postpartum. I almost laughed. Even now, with his most sensitive parts superglued to a 22-year-old, he was trying to play the devoted husband. Save your breath, Ryan, I whispered, holding my baby tight. Save it for the paramedics. 15 minutes later, the EMTs arrived. 4 burly men walked into the nursery. I saw the moment they processed the scene. One of them had to bite his lip so hard to stop from laughing that his face turned purple. They couldn't separate them on the spot. The bond was chemical, rock solid, and any attempt to pull them apart caused severe tearing. They had to load them onto a single stretcher, sideways, covered in a sheet. Watching my perfect husband being wheeled out of our house, weeping in agony while awkwardly spooning the sobbing nanny, was a sight I would cherish for the rest of my life. I rode in the ambulance with them, playing the traumatized wife. I sat in the corner, holding my baby, silently recording a 5-minute video on my phone under the guise of texting my family. At the hospital, it was a circus. The ER nurses couldn't hide their whispers. Ryan and Chloe were wheeled into emergency surgery. The doctors had to use surgical-grade acetone and scalpels. According to the surgeon who updated me an hour later, the damage was extensive. Skin grafts would be required. Ryan was going to be in a bandage for a very, very long time. While Ryan was under general anesthesia, his clothes and belongings were handed to me in a plastic bag. Inside was his phone. I sat in the sterile waiting room, the cold fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My daughter was finally asleep in my arms. I unlocked his phone again. I already had the evidence of his cheating. I had the chat logs. I had the hospital records from tonight. With this, I could ruin him in divorce court. But something still nagged at the back of my mind. Besides, you're the person I pursued for 10 years. How could I not love you? I die before I cheat. Ryan had donated his kidney to me 3 years ago. I had been suffering from rapid onset renal failure. We were just friends then. I had rejected his romantic advances for 7 years. I didn't love him, not like that. But when I was dying on the transplant list, he got tested. He was a perfect match. After the surgery, as we lay in adjacent hospital beds, he held my hand and told me he would give his life for me. Guilt, immense gratitude, and a profound sense of indebtedness had finally broken down my walls. I married him a year later. If he was capable of this level of psychopathic deceit, drugging my milk, plotting with the nanny, faking his perfect husband persona, what else was he lying about? I opened his email app. I searched the word kidney. Nothing suspicious. I searched transplant. Nothing. I opened his banking app. I had access to our joint accounts, but I knew he had a private offshore account for his business investments. I reset the password using his phone number and email. I scrolled back. 3 years ago, the exact month of my kidney failure. There was a wire transfer for $250,000 to an LLC registered in Southeast Asia. The memo line was blank. My blood ran cold. I immediately opened his encrypted cloud drive, guessing his password on the 3rd try. It was the date of my transplant surgery. Inside the drive was a folder named Medical. My hands shook so violently, I almost dropped the phone. I clicked it open. There were PDF scans of medical documents from a private clinic in Bangkok, dated a month before my surgery. I opened the first document. It was a purchase agreement. Donor, anonymous. Recipient, Lily Mitchell. Fee, $250,000. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. I opened the next file. It was an email exchange between Ryan and a disgraced doctor named Dr. Eris. Ryan, are you sure you can make the incision look authentic? She has to believe I was the donor. Dr. Eris, for the extra $50,000, yes. We will perform a superficial laparoscopic incision on your flank while she is in surgery. You will have the exact scars of a donor. The black market kidney is a genetic match. She will never know. Bile rose in my throat. I clamped a hand over my mouth, suffocating a scream. He didn't give me his kidney. He bought an illegal organ from the black market. He paid a doctor to mutilate his own body just to fake the donor scars. He fabricated an elaborate, horrific lie, weaponizing my own illness to trap me in a cage of eternal gratitude. He didn't love me. He was obsessed with me. I was a prize he couldn't win fairly, so he bought his way into my body and my life. And then, once he finally had me, once he had conquered the unattainable prize and knocked me up, he got bored. I became a loose bag, a fat, disgusting burden he complained about to an 18-year-old nanny while washing my underwear with a fake smile. I looked at my daughter, sleeping peacefully in my lap. She shared DNA with a psychopath. Tears of sorrow instantly evaporated. They were replaced by a rage so blinding, so pure, it felt like ice water flooding my veins. Crying was for victims. I was done being a victim. Ryan Mitchell, you want to play games? I'll show you how to play. Ryan woke up the next morning in a private recovery room. I was sitting by his bed, holding a cup of coffee. My eyes were red and puffy, aided by aggressively rubbing them with a tissue. When he saw me, he immediately started crying. Lily, I'm so sorry, he rasped, his voice weak from the painkillers. He couldn't move his lower half. The doctor had warned me the skin grafts would take weeks to heal, and the scarring would be permanent. I placed the coffee down and took his hand. I forced myself not to recoil at his touch. Sure, I said softly, letting a single tear roll down my cheek. Don't speak. The doctor told me what happened. You didn't leave, he whispered, his eyes widening in disbelief. Where would I go, Ryan? I sniffled. We have a baby. And you gave me your kidney. You saved my life. I can't just throw away our marriage over a mistake. Relief, thick and sickening, washed over his face. He squeezed my hand. It was a mistake. A terrible, stupid mistake. The stress of the baby, the lack of sleep. Chloe threw herself at me. She threatened to make up lies about me if I didn't sleep with her. I felt trapped. I know, honey, I whispered, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. I know. It's okay. I fired her this morning. She's gone. You're an angel, Lily, he sobbed. I don't deserve you. You don't, I thought. You deserve hell. And I'm going to be the one to hand you the map. Over the next 4 weeks, I played the role of the saintly, forgiving wife to absolute perfection. Because Ryan was bedridden, I took full control of his finances, his email, and his business affairs. I told him I wanted to ease his burden so he could heal. He handed over his passwords willingly, eager to prove his transparency after his infidelity. He thought he was proving his loyalty. He was actually giving me the keys to his execution. My first move was financial. I quietly transferred the bulk of our liquid assets into a secure, private account in my name. I legally liquidated his stock portfolios, framing it as necessary capital for a new business venture we had discussed previously. Because we were married and he signed a sweeping power of attorney, just in case before his kidney donation, the banks didn't blink. My second move was Chloe. She had been discharged a week after the incident, permanently scarred and humiliated. I tracked her down to a cheap motel. When I walked into her room, she shrank back, terrified. "I'm not here to hurt you," I said coldly, dropping an envelope on the cheap table. "There's $20,000 in cash in there. I want you to sue my husband for sexual coercion, workplace harassment, and emotional distress." She stared at me, trembling. "What?" "You heard me. You will file a public lawsuit. You will claim he used his position of power to force you into a sexual relationship. You will attach the medical records of your incident as evidence. I will privately fund your lawyers." "Why are you doing this?" she asked, clutching the envelope. "Because he ruined my life and I'm going to ruin his," I said. "Do we have a deal?" She nodded rapidly. My final move was the hardest, but the most crucial. I took the PDF files of the black market organ purchase, the emails with Dr. Eris, and the wire transfer receipts. Organ trafficking is a federal crime. Forging medical records to facilitate it is a felony. I compiled everything onto a flash drive and mailed it anonymously to the FBI's Human Trafficking Division, along with a detailed letter explaining exactly what Ryan Mitchell had done. I also sent a copy to the medical board, exposing the private hospital that had facilitated the fake surgery. Through it all, I smiled at Ryan. I spoon-fed him soup. I changed his bandages. I watched the skin grafts on his groin turn purple and angry, knowing he would never be able to look at himself in the mirror the same way again. "I love you, Lily," he would say, looking up at me with those pathetic, adoring eyes. "I know," I would reply. On the day he was finally cleared to walk on crutches, the trap snapped shut. It was a Tuesday morning. I had packed my bags and the baby's things the night before and loaded them into my car while he slept. He hobbled into the living room, wearing loose sweatpants, looking for his morning coffee. Instead, he found me standing by the front door, wearing my coat, the baby secured in her car seat next to me. On the coffee table sat a stack of papers. "Lily, where are you going?" he asked, leaning heavily on his crutches. "I'm leaving, Ryan." My voice was flat, empty of any warmth, any fake affection. It was the first time in a month I allowed my true disgust to show. He froze. Panic seized his features. "What?" "No, wait, Lily, we talked about this. You forgave me. I'm getting better. We're going to couples counseling." "I never forgave you," I said, my voice echoing in the quiet house. "I just needed time to organize my exit." "You can't do this," he shouted, hobbling forward. "I gave you my kidney. I saved your life. You owe me." I slowly reached into my purse and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I walked over and slapped it onto his chest. He fumbled to catch it. It was a printed copy of the email exchange between him and Dr. Eris. Ryan looked down at the paper. The color instantly drained from his face, leaving him looking like a corpse. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. His crutches wobbled. "You didn't give me your kidney, Ryan," I whispered, stepping into his personal space, my eyes locking onto his terrified gaze. "You bought a black market organ from a trafficker. You mutilated yourself to fake a scar. You orchestrated a sick, twisted lie to trap me in a marriage because you knew I would never love a pathetic, obsessive creep like you on my own." Lily, please, let me explain." He gasped, his chest heaving, tears of absolute panic welling in his eyes. "I did it because I loved you. I couldn't live without you. You were dying. You didn't save me out of love." I spat, my voice laced with venom. "You bought me, like a piece of property. And then you treated me like trash." I pointed to the stack of papers on the table. "Those are divorce papers. You'll also find the lawsuit filed against you by Chloe this morning. Oh, and you should probably check your bank accounts. They're empty. You signed the power of attorney, remember? Just in case anything happened during the transplant." His knees buckled. He collapsed onto the floor, screaming as the impact aggravated his healing skin grafts. He curled into a ball, sobbing hysterically. "You bitch," he wailed, his facade completely shattering. "You stole everything from me. I made you. I bought your life. And now I'm taking it back," I said coldly. Right on cue, the sound of heavy tires crunched on our gravel driveway. Red and blue lights flashed through the living room windows. Ryan's head snapped up. What did you do?" "Organ trafficking is a federal offense, Ryan," I said, walking back to the door and picking up my baby's car seat. And the FBI takes it very seriously, especially when the money trail crosses international borders. Heavy knocks pounded on the front door. FBI, open up. Ryan dragged himself across the floor toward me, his fingers scraping against the hardwood. Lily, no. Please. I'll go to prison. I won't survive. Please tell them it's a mistake. I opened the front door. 3 agents in tactical gear stood on the porch. Officers, I said, my voice trembling, slipping perfectly back into the role of the traumatized victim. He's right there. The agents stormed in, completely ignoring Ryan's shrieks of pain as they hauled him off the floor, kicked away his crutches, and slammed him face first into the wall to cuff him. Ryan Mitchell, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit international organ trafficking, wire fraud, and forgery. The lead agent's voice boomed. I stood on the porch, holding my daughter, the crisp autumn wind blowing through my hair. Ryan turned his head as they dragged him toward the cruiser. His face was twisted in an expression of pure, unadulterated agony and despair. Lily, he screamed, his voice cracking. Lily, you can't do this. I love you. I love you. I looked at him. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just stared at him with absolute, chilling indifference. Silly boy, I said softly, knowing he could hear me in the sudden quiet of the morning. Dreams are reversed. Remember? You might as well dream you died. I turned my back on him, walked to my car, and drove away. 2 years later. The visitation room at FCI Allenwood was bleak, smelling of bleach and stale despair. I sat on the hard metal chair, staring through the thick plexiglass. The door on the other side opened. Ryan was escorted in by a guard. He was unrecognizable. The tailored suits and perfectly styled hair were gone. He was gaunt, his skin sallow, his eyes sunken into dark, bruised sockets. He walked with a pronounced, permanent limp. The prison doctors hadn't been as delicate with his infected skin grafts as the private hospital surgeons had been. He looked like a hollowed-out ghost of the man I once married. He picked up the phone on his side of the glass. His hand trembled uncontrollably. I picked up my receiver. Lily, he breathed, a desperate, pathetic smile twitching on his lips. You came. You actually came. I did, I said evenly. Did you bring her? He asked, looking around frantically, as if our daughter might be hiding behind my chair. Did you bring my baby? I haven't seen a picture of her in 2 years. She's not your baby, Ryan, I said. He blinked, confused. What do you mean? I leaned closer to the glass. When I was pregnant, the doctor noted that our daughter's blood type was incompatible with yours. I was so confused back then. I didn't understand how it was possible. I thought maybe the lab made a mistake. Ryan stopped breathing. But then I remembered. I continued, my voice smooth as silk. I remembered that night in Vegas, a month before we found out I was pregnant. You were passed out drunk in the hotel room. I went down to the casino bar, and I ran into my ex-boyfriend. The one I actually loved. The one you spent years trying to convince me was no good for me. Ryan's jaw dropped. The last remnants of his sanity began to fracture right before my eyes. I never cheated on you, Ryan. I lied, looking him dead in the eyes, ensuring every word was a poisoned dagger straight to his heart. But she's not yours. I just let you think she was so you would pay for everything. A guttural, animalistic noise erupted from Ryan's throat. It was a sound of pure, soul-shattering devastation. He slammed his fists against the plexiglass, screaming uncontrollably, spit flying from his lips. You bitch. You evil bitch. She's mine. She's mine. The guards immediately swarmed him, wrestling him to the ground. He fought them with manic strength, shrieking my name, crying tears of absolute madness. I sat there, perfectly calm, holding the phone to my ear, listening to his screams fade as they dragged him away back into the darkness. I gently placed the receiver back on the cradle. I stood up, smoothed down my skirt, and walked out of the prison. The sun was shining brightly outside. I got into my car, where my beautiful daughter was waiting in the back seat, babbling happily. She had Ryan's nose, but he would never know that. I started the engine, turned up the radio, and drove us home.